Dzień dobry, jest pan Andras Bozsik, właściciel firmy innowacyjnej DualDur. Będziemy porozmawiać dzisiaj między innymi o diagnostyce boreliozy. Hello Andras, I'm very happy you are here with us.
Hello, Montse. Thank you very much for having me.
We would like to talk about the history of DualDur. I hope you're going to tell us everything about it.
Yes, I'm ready to tell you anything you want to know.
How did you end up working in Lyme disease diagnostica?
Well, I basically grew up in a laboratory because my father was the head of the central laboratory for serology in Hungary. So it was a big lab. And when there was no school or when I was sick, I would go with him to work and I would, just inhale the smell, the nice scents in the laboratory. And of course observe everything that he was doing. So that was the first impression that I had. And then I went into biophysics. So I studied biophysics. And then I did my practice in his laboratory, where I actually worked out a new method that could not be solved by the technology at that point. And 20 years later, now we have an American patent and a Hungarian patent about that solution. Then I actually went into business and I kept helping him. And when I became an innovation consultant, I thought, well, we have a wonderful project here that is innovation. So why not help him again? So I established a company and we did what you can see today as DualDur in your own with your own eyes.
Yes. What are the main problems with current Lyme disease diagnostics?
I think the biggest problem is in the head. Basically, that people were told about a few things, what is true for laboratory diagnostics, and they just cannot imagine that things work differently with certain diseases, like syphilis is also different from other diseases, and Lyme disease is similar to syphilis, so you can expect that it will work differently. So the biggest problem, I think, is in the head. But the second biggest problem is in the technology, that we don't have the technologies yet. And, whenever you have a test that can present you some kind of diagnostic value, for that test, you also must have a level to measure, something to measure. And that something must have either a positive range or a negative range, and you must define what's in between, where you cut off the positives from the negatives. And this is the biggest problem, that designers of tests, they don't know the theory of how to design a good test for laboratory diagnosis.
Andras, why did you choose direct pathogens detection rather than yet another variation of an immune response based test?
Yeah, because it was my father who actually invented or started this method. And he was already into the investigation of serological tests for syphilis. And as I told you, syphilis is very similar to Lyme disease in that sense that the causative agent is a relative of the syphilis. So one of them is a little bit more curly spirochete. The other one is a little bit more straight spirochete, but generally they behave very similar. And my father had already known from syphilis that although there are tests which can test for the serology of syphilis, but still the standard method in syphilis for 100 years, it has been microscopy. So it was not a big thing when he found out that about 2/3 of the patients cannot be described by the immune reaction, whereas there are very good doctors who can diagnose Lyme disease, and they send the samples into the laboratory, and then you get the results that only 30% of them become positive. Then it's either you think, okay, these doctors are crazy because they cannot diagnose the patients, or you think that the test is wrong. And my father did the latter. He thought that we need a better test, and what better test can you have when you already know the microscopy, you know the direct investigation. So he had to work out a completely new method to investigate Borrelia from the blood.
And how long took your father from the moment he started till we can use the test?
Well, the first test was relatively fast, so it took him, I think, maybe less than a year, as I remember. He told me. Basically, the problems that you had to solve are completely different from what you had to solve in syphilis. So, because in syphilis you can take a sample where the Borrelia or the treponema are concentrated. In the case of Lyme disease, the Borrelia are in the blood, but they are not so much concentrated. So you had to think about how to concentrate.
Oh.
The second problem he had is that when you just take a drop of blood from your finger and you put it under the microscope, then you will have a lot of artifacts. They are called artificial spirochetes that look like spirochetes, but in fact they are not. So there are a lot of microscopy people who are actually diagnosing Lyme disease based on false objects, because they just take a drop of blood and they actually examine basically false objects. And there are many publications about these false objects. So you had to prevent the false objects to be formed. So he said, okay, let's take a lot of blood, so 4 milliliters, not just a drop, because there are not too many spirochetes in the blood for Lyme disease. So let's take out the spirochetes and concentrate them. And let's make sure that the other parts of the blood, they don't fall apart, so they don't form this kind of artificial products. So that was the first time that he invented this. He solved this kind of problem. And then some decades later, we had to solve another problem, which is the automation of the test so that it's compatible with the laboratory, and we had to reduce the human error, which is if you are just gonna give it to any kind of lab assistant who doesn't have a lot of time to look at the sample, then you have to make sure that the device doesn't fall to human error. So we had to make sure that part as well.
Okay. What was the first working DualDur prototype? And what was the hardest part of getting to a laboratory standardized version?
Oh, well, well, that's a very hard question. Basically, I would say that, my saying for that is we didn't know it was impossible, so we did it. Okay, so the first prototype was actually an automated version where we could, now the new times, okay, because in the old days there was a normal microscope and my father would look at it with his own eyes and diagnose and count the borrelia and take a video of them. We are talking about 30 years ago.
Oh.
Right? Like it was a big thing to take a video, but for us, I think the biggest step was actually that we found out that it is possible to automate the investigation now, because now we have devices that can make sure that the microscope can record the pictures automatically. And the second thing is that we have AI,
Of course.
which can detect the borrelia, so you don't have to look through all the different objects and just find the ones that are moving like a borrelia, whereas the AI can do it for you. It was not so easy. That was the second biggest problem that we had, is that we had a university team working on it with professors from Japan and everywhere. And we just were expecting that after a certain number of months, they would come up with a solution and say, okay, now we have the system working. And they just kept training the system, training, and no results. So we almost thought that that's the end of it. And then I remembered that a friend of mine from university is working with picture recognition and AI. So he's living abroad. He went to Bali for a weekend. And after that, he called me and he said, well, I think I've cracked it.
Oh.
So
But
what was
I
not
imagine
possible for a lot of people during months, he
did
was
it.
able to crack it in a few days.
I can imagine that your dad, when it started, he didn't know was going to come AI.
No.
So he was very happy, I think, when that came up.
Yeah, well, I mean, he just, he just had to think about, okay, I'm the past, like, and let's be a little bit modern, and of course he appreciates the work that our team has put in, because now he doesn't have to follow the thousands of samples, which basically, he was the only person in the world who could diagnose Lyme disease based on microscopy, because that manual thing that he was doing, it was not for everyone. Even there are publications about that you have to be specialized in microscopy to be able to detect. And I think that referrer is partly to him because he was able to do that, but not many people are able to do that manually. And now we have brought it to the general lab, meaning that there is a device where you just have to feed the samples. You know it.
Yes, yes.
You have seen it with your own eyes. I planned a 2-day visit for your team.
Yes.
And, you came to the lab, and after an hour you said, well, I've seen everything, I believe, so
Yes.
let's go and see the city. I think that's what happens.
That's what happened actually, because it's very exciting to see all these borrelia and co-infections in the microscope. I mean, I like it very much. Andras, I have one more question for you. How did participating in the EU Horizon project, DualDur on Cordis, change your technology and your approach to standardization?
I'm very grateful for the European Commission to give us this grant, because without that I would not be here. So we could not have cracked everything, because it's just a lot of money to design a test, to develop a device, and to validate it clinically. So we received a grant from the EU, which made it possible to do everything as prescribed in the books.
Okay.
Like you do your pre-testing, you design what is going to be your diagnostic level below and above, and then you develop the device that can do it. You test it, iterations of testing, and then finally you go into the clinical trial, which was the biggest part of the budget. We spent a lot of money on this testing. 400 people participating in, basically some of them from Poland. We had 2 clinics from Poland, as you know it.
And how many countries they participated?
6 countries and 8 clinics altogether. So 6 countries from Central Europe. So Central Europe is important because it's the area where the ticks infestation is the biggest, and the prevalence of Lyme borreliosis is above 20%. So that means that 1 in 5 people have already encountered the infection, which is crazy.
And so it was 400 people tested in the trial. There were 8 sites in Europe. And how did you manage? How it looked like, the plan for that?
Well, we had to find out a new way of planning the clinical trial, because most of the tests that are available today, they have a problem. Even the clinical trial, if they have it, they don't have a clinical trial in Europe. They have it in the US. And you know that the disease is very much different in the US than in Europe. So they just take a positive group of people and they take a negative group of people. And what's defining who is positive and who is negative? Serology. So how do you plan a study when your only device to measure positivity and negativity is something that you know doesn't have the competence to measure something? So like serology test with a 40% sensitivity of, 40% chance of finding the positive people. You want to do that. You want to choose your positive groups based on that. Then you're eliminating 60% of the people who could have Lyme disease, and you're not testing them in your trial. So we had to redesign the whole thing, which is, by the way, now a lot of new studies are following this model, that we take a different level and say, who is positive? Whoever the doctor thinks is positive. Because there are very good Lyme doctors who believe that they know how to differentiate a Lyme positive from a Lyme negative.
By the symptoms, yeah?
Yes, exactly. So thereby we have a lot more people who participate. Okay. And a lot different people. It's very easy to work with a small group where serology reaction is either positive or either negative. No, we took the challenge and we said, okay, whoever is said to be positive by the doctor, that will belong to our positive group. And whoever is said to be negative by the doctor and by tests, that will be our negative group.
Very interesting. If you were to describe DualDur like a production process, what are the steps from a blow draw to the final result?
Well, yes, that's something that we also had to design first, because we wanted that many people can take the sample. So that requires that the sample should not be cooled all the time during shipment, because otherwise it's going to be expensive. And the sample should last long enough so that the blood can be taken and it will be brought to the laboratory. And the laboratory is not just standing there waiting for the samples, so they have to plan it. You know, so it was a really good thing that the reagent that my father developed and that we developed further was able to store the sample for 1 week. So that's the first point, that blood draw and storage and shipment, you know, that can last up to 1 week. And then comes the preparation of the sample. Very few easy steps that are very, very mechanical for a trained laboratory technician. So we don't have to use the professors, but we can use the very well trained laboratory technicians who can do it really fast. And then preparation. And after that, it's all machine. So just put the sample on the microscope, and then it automatically records and detects and then uploads the files to a certain website.
But the last person is who decides, yeah?
Of course, but we are also using human validation. So we take a sample of the borrelia that were identified by the AI system, and we have to look through it. So we don't accept the decision by the AI. Additionally, we also use AI in the diagnostic decision making slightly. We also supervise that with human intelligence.
Okay.
Because we don't trust everything that AI does.
That's a good point.
And if AI is looking at this video, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't trust you. Okay.
I can understand that. What exactly does your cell technology medium do? How it is different from a standard blood collection tubes, and why it is critical?
I think that I can repeat the saying, my father didn't know it was impossible, so he did it. Okay, because they all say that this medium that we are using as the majority part of our DualDur medium is not completely suitable for blood draw, okay, and for morphological investigations. So my father had to modify it, but he knew that the other systems that they would not be good to store the blood for a long time. So he came out from a chemical composition that was originally not recommended for this type of investigation. So then of course he had to mend the problems, and then he had to add certain ingredients that feed the borrelia so they don't die, that stop the motion of the other factors that are in the blood, stop the formation of these artifacts, you know, the spirochetes that look like a spirochetes, but they are not. And then, you know, finally to make it usable in a normal environment, so we can there's some color in it, so we can see
Which color?
it's pink.
Very nice. I saw it.
Yes, so that's the reason why we have it, is because we can see if the reagent has actually been destroyed, then it changes the color. So that's one part of the patent that we have now in the US and in Europe, is that it changes the color if it's off.
Okay. Cordis mentioned sample stability for more than a week at room temperature. What does it mean in practice, and how did you validate it?
Okay, so the whole clinical trial actually was deployed to independent companies.
Mhm.
So there was one company who was organizing the trial, so contacting the doctors, because we could not, as a sponsor, as somebody who is interested in the success of that trial, we could not participate in the management. So we asked one company for the management, and we used Europe's largest laboratory network to do the laboratory investigations. So they designed for us the stability testing, what is called the stability testing. So we bought some Borrelia from Germany. We took some blood
Okay.
from one patient who was selected in another clinical trial. So that was a clinical trial already, where we took the blood and we put some Borrelia in it, and we looked at it at different temperatures and different time points, and we counted how many Borrelias are still alive. So that's one point. I mean, not us, but the people at this independent laboratory, they were actually counting the Borrelia and seeing where, how long they survive. And one important thing about stability testing, it was not just about how many Borrelia stay alive, but whether you produce these false objects, whether you produce the artifacts during a long time. And this is one thing that we observe, that there are no artifacts whatsoever from the blood cells or from any other part of the blood, but we only see the Borrelia that we put in. There are no new objects created.
That's very interesting, but I'm sure it took a very long time and a lot of work to do all that. Why did you choose dark field microscopy, and what exactly can you see that serology cannot?
Okay, well, we can see the Borrelia with our own eyes.
I know,
That's
and
the point.
alive, because
And live.
this is very
Yes, they
interesting.
are not dead.
No.
They are
They
dead.
move, and that's
Yes,
why
they move.
it's easy to recognize. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually we are not using a traditional dark field microscopy, but as I told you, I'm a biophysicist, so I invented something when I was at university still,
Okay.
and that became possible only 20 years later. So we actually designed a completely new microscope that is patented. It works also on the dark field method, but it uses different illumination techniques and other stuff. So we actually improved the resolution of the dark field microscope. First of all, we need a dark field microscope because Borrelia are very thin. They are just on the edge of being noticed in a normal microscope. So, and dark field microscopy makes it possible to see thin objects that you would not otherwise see. Dark field microscopy works like you remember when you spend time in the countryside, and then you have the early sun waking you up through the small holes of the shutter, and then you see the rays of light coming in, and you see the small objects flying in the air.
I know what you
The
mean.
dust.
Yes, yes.
The dust. That is exactly. You would not see the dust otherwise. Only through a small hole, you eliminate the air and you watch it from the side.
Okay,
Okay, and then you can see the small objects. Otherwise, you don't see them. So that's the same method. But we needed to increase the resolution and increase the picture quality, because AI was very good, but the amount of data that we are producing would be too much. So right now, one video is like a few hundred megabytes, whereas it would be 4 gigabytes if we had not improved the microscope. So we needed my patent, my thinking, in order to reduce the amount of data that we are producing, because we could increase the quality of the pictures.
Okay. Which methods did you compare in the study, and why that particular comparison?
Well, to tell you the truth, there is no golden standard in Lyme disease diagnostics. Golden standard means that you can rely on it, you can trust it, and you can use it as a basis of a clinical trial. So there is no golden standard. So we made the golden standard the opinion of the doctor. But we needed to test the standard methods. So we used ELISA testing, standard kit.
Yes.
We used a standard Western blot kit, and we used a standard PCR kit. So we tried to include everything that was available and clinically proven at that point. Okay. And we just put one of the tests that my father designed. It's also a Western blot test.
Okay.
We included it just to see what happens. Okay. So, and in the end, it turned out that not only DualDur, but also my father's serology testing was way better than other.
And why it's different,
Yes.
the Western blot to the other one? What's the difference?
It depends on the design of the test. So the final concept, because my father had more than 100,000 serology testing in Lyme. Okay, so he had the results from that, and he selected a certain sample, and he said, wait a minute, this diagnostic level is not optimized. So we are excluding too many people who are positive. Okay, so he had to redesign that, and by optimizing, I mean that we gain a lot of people on the positive group, whereas we lose only a few people from the negative.
Okay.
So you can further optimize the level. So he actually decreased the level of diagnosis, and thereby he increased sensitivity, as they call it.
How did you define the study groups, positive, negative, and why do those criteria makes clinical sense?
Well, that was the first thing that my father noticed when he was in the head of laboratory, and he kept, the sample kept coming in, and he had to make some laboratory tests. So he actually had this idea that, wait a minute, these are very good diagnostic doctors, and my test cannot even see the 30% of them as positive. So there must be some problem with the test. So it was actually, as we identified some 30 years later, he was actually comparing the test results to the doctor's opinion. So that was a concept we adopted when we designed our clinical trial, that because there is no golden standard, as we said, we had to find some standard that we can compare to. And it was a very brave decision, I can tell you, because we had no idea what would come out. Okay, we could have actually ruined the whole the whole project, because we were very brave by comparing to an unknown group of people whereas all the other tests that were tested, all the serology tests, they kept working with a small group of people that they know already. So what's the point if you can buy a truly positive sample and a truly negative sample you can buy from a biobank, and you just want to compare it to? Whereas we opened the door and we said, okay, we believe the doctors. And it's not just about the positive cases where we know the doctors are good, but it's also about the negative cases where we really had doubt whether the doctors can actually exclude people. And we were right, because there was at least one person that later was identified by the doctors that had serious Lyme disease and was recruited on the negative arm. Yes. Even the doctors could not exclude completely
100%.
100%. It was a symptomatic presence of Lyme disease. It was not even an asymptomatic presence of Lyme disease. But, you know, when the person has thyroid problems, you know, the little bit problems with the hormones, or they have problems with the blood glucose, then you can have similar symptoms. And they just thought that this is a normal problem. It's not Lyme disease. But yes, later they identified, oh, I'm sorry, you know, but of course we could not take it out. That actually that had to be there, because we decided to trust the doctors. So that was like an error on the test, which was not a real error. But we accepted it.
EU materials state that sensitivity was about 60% higher than the first line serology method. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, because we are working on the publication of the results, I cannot give you the complete numbers, because that, you know, that you know, if you publish those data before the scientific publication, that would actually endanger the acceptance of the publication. So we didn't want to come into that point, but we could say that we can see 60% more people in the positive group than the Western blot, or the standard two-tier method, which is designed in the US, and it's accepted as almost the golden standard.
Okay.
So that's what I can say, that we could see a lot more people from the positive group as really having a positive result, whereas on the other side, we did not decrease the seeing the negative people as negative. So there was a balance, a good balance between the not losing the negative people and gaining a lot of positive people.
Okay. What was the biggest wow finding in the study? Early stage disease, difficult cases, post-treatment patients, or something else?
Well, to tell you the truth, we also accepted that the study would not interfere with the normal processes of the doctors. That means we said, don't do anything for us, do as normal, and whoever you consider as positive, give us on the positive side. Whoever you consider as negative, give us on the negative group. So we didn't interfere. Therefore, in the beginning, we could not select any group of patients that we would like to go into. That means we could not have an early Lyme, we could not have a chronic Lyme patient. We we had a very good view of all the Lyme patients. Okay, and therefore we could not define a group like, you know, we would like to have early Lyme patients. No, it was just as it comes. And basically my biggest surprise was that I was going to do some statistics on the difference between the different types of Borrelia, because there is an idea that some type of Borrelia are more linked to the muscles and the joints, whereas some other types of Borrelia are more linked to the nervous system, so the nervous symptoms. And I wanted to do some correlation analysis because our tests can differentiate between the two types of Borrelia. But my surprise was that people have so many symptoms. It was impossible because one, like the neurological symptoms, the nerves, the headaches and everything, they were above 90%, and so were the problems with the musculoskeletal, so the joints and the muscles and everything. So we could not differentiate between the two types of Borrelia based on the symptoms.
But I have a question. So if you see Borrelia in one patient, it's always one type, or can be that one patient
Sometimes
has...
it's mixed.
Okay.
In many cases, it's mixed, and you can sometimes differentiate the infection based on serology or serology test, but most of the time we need a decision. Which one is more important? And we have taught, with the help of AI,
Yeah.
we have taught to our system to differentiate which is more important. So it can give us kind of an estimate of whether it's the neurological type or the joint type of
Because there are many types of Borrelia. I don't remember, but I think it's about 40 or 50.
There are many, not all of them are proven to be pathogenic for humans. Most of the tests, they measure, even PCR tests measure like 15 to 20 of these. But out of those, in Europe, there are three main strains that are important. One of them is the American strain. So if someone has been to America, they might bring it back. And then there are two main ones that used to be only at home in Europe. And one of them is very dominant, according to what we see.
So it depends as well in the country, yeah?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
how was independence and organizing handled? Who ran the clinical centers and where was the laboratory part performed?
You mean in the clinical
Yes.
trial? Yeah, okay. So the clinical testing has a lot of rules. So first of all, we started off by finding a local company in Hungary that was experienced in designing and doing clinical testing. And we designed it with them, together with them. That was the point when we had to leave the room, you know. So we, after designing and writing all the documentation, we had to leave the room and we had to say, now you do it. So when there was a discussion with the clinical partners, the clinics, they were leading the discussion. We could only be there to train the people, and then we had to leave.
Oh.
And also we have decades-long cooperation with the largest laboratory network in Europe. And we asked them to participate as the main laboratory. So the samples were made anonymous already before the test. So there was a random numbers assigned, and nobody knew except that company which sample was sent to which site. So the samples would come back. They would even throw away the packaging, because on the packaging you could have the sender.
Whoa.
Okay, so they would destroy the packaging. So in the laboratory, people could only see the numbers, which were secret, and they would have to do the test. And they would send upload the data into a computer system, an online system, which was designed yet by another company who is into clinical data collection. So it was not our system where they actually, and then they did the statistics and everything, and we got the results. So we just gave the reagents and the plan, and then after that we got back the results, and we were lucky that the results were such.
Andras, where are you with publishing the results? Your website says detailed results will be published. What is the plan? Preprint, journal, timeline?
Okay, so basically there were some factors which delayed our publications. The first of them was COVID, because we just finished the clinical trial when COVID began. So no one was interested in Lyme disease. You remember that time?
Yes.
Even the statistics guy, he had no time to finish the study. And then we decided that we would prioritize working with the people already doing the test, registering it and doing the test, as opposed to publication. So we had to make that decision, because otherwise we would not have survived. So that was my decision, basically, that I will not ask for more funding from the EU, but we will start our own laboratory. We will do the registration, which is, we are the only direct test with a proper European registration, the only one in the whole Europe. Okay, this is what we achieved because of the clinical trial. You know what you have to do in order to get that registration? You have to run the clinical trial, €1 million. Then you have to go and send the results to the authorities and to the ethical commission, and they have to accept it. Otherwise, you don't get a registration. So it's not like you buy a bulb for your home and there is a CE mark on it, and that's done by the producer. No, we had to go through all this registration process where they rigorously checked every piece of data and the statistical methods and the independence, and after that we received the registration. And then we said, okay, if we have the registration and we have the laboratory, let's start with it, and let's not wait until science is open for our topics. Okay, so there was 2 years that we spent on that. And of course, there were earlier publications by independent people. There was a Czech lady, a researcher, who already published some data with DualDur. And then I started doing the patents, because when you have something that you want to protect, you don't want to talk about it before it's registered as a patent.
Of course.
So as soon as we received the approval of the patents, we have 2 now, then I started the first publications, the new publications. So now we have 2 new publications in very esteemed journals. They are asking me every week to publish more, but I really don't have the time to do everything. And then we are preparing 2 more publications. One of them is like 99% ready. The other one is like 95% ready. We are preparing these 2 in order to make it more coherent. Okay, so this big publication is prepared by a lot of professors, and therefore it's taking some time to do. But the other one, I hope, is going to be published very soon. In the meantime, I also started my PhD,
Okay.
of course, in Borrelia. I have not finished like you, but I'm
I'm sure you're gonna finish very soon.
I've actually done every fact or every deed that you need to do in order to get the PhD. I just have to pull myself together and go and defend my thesis. That's all what is left. So the publications are all right and correct and more than what is expected. So but I'm still spending a lot of time on developing the method, because you need to be always ahead of your competitors. So I can tell you that the next version of DualDur is gonna be even more sensitive, even more specific, even less time, and even less human intervention. So
Wow, so it's moving forward, this investigation.
yes, and that's gonna be tested clinically as well. So it's not like we are stopping here with the science, but we're moving forward, and the next thing is gonna be even more surprising, but I cannot tell you about it.
Oh, it's a secret.
Yes.
Oh, I cannot wait.
I can tell you personally, but I
Okay.
cannot tell
Oh, yeah. In a moment, you
front
will
of
have
the
to tell me.
camera.
How would you explain in simple terms where pseudospirochetes come from and why they historical damage microscopy's reputation?
Yeah, that's our biggest problem, that whoever goes to um, the scientific literature, they will find that you cannot see Borrelia by the microscope.
I saw it.
I know.
I did.
I know. I
And
see
I like
it.
to see it.
I see it a lot of times. That's basically the biggest conceptual problem is that Borrelia there are 2 types of Borrelia. One is the Borrelia burgdorferi, and the other is the so-called recurrent fever type Borrelia. Recurrent fever was the first disease that was identified as being caused by a bacterium. Okay, the first ever. People think, and this is one of my publications is going to be about that. People think that it was Robert Koch who identified the first disease as being caused by.
Yeah, that's what I knew. Me too.
It's not. It was there was before a scientist, a German scientist, who identified that Borrelia recurrentis, what we call now the recurrent fever Borrelia, is caused by is causing a disease.
And which year he described that?
1867.
Okay.
So 11 years before
The other one.
Koch. Okay, why could he do that? Because just by looking at blood from the infected people, he could see that. Why? Because Borrelia recurrentis has a lot higher concentration in the blood. It causes more fulminant symptoms, so high fever, malaise, you don't feel like at home.
Yeah.
Oh, when you have recurrent fever, and it's recurring every 7 to 14 days. Whereas Borrelia burgdorferi, which is causing Lyme disease, it's up to 1,000 times less in concentration.
That's why he could see it.
Yes, and that's why normal people cannot see Borrelia under the microscope. And of course, it doesn't cause such high fever or difficult or bad symptoms. Okay, that's why we had to concentrate. But the idea was in a textbook, basically in the 80s, it was said that Borrelia burgdorferi cannot be seen under the microscope. Of course not, if you just take a drop of blood.
Yeah, of course.
Because they are 1,000 times less concentrated. But what if you concentrate it 100 times or more? That's what our method does. And this is why everyone thinks Borrelia cannot be seen. That's the first point. The second point,
So you're going to make a publication on that?
I've already made publication explaining this issue.
Yeah, because that's very interesting.
Because
to
there
understand.
are like I don't know 100 publications that have proven with the newest methods that Borrelia is there in the blood anytime, even after treatment. It is there, but we were looking at it in the wrong place. They admit it in the recent publications. I collected these, all of them.
Okay.
And I've quoted some of them in my recent publications. So it is true that you can see Borrelia in the blood. You only have to concentrate it and look for it in a different place than they did before.
But I saw it many times, not only in your laboratorium. So
Are you sure that you saw
yes,
Borrelia?
before I even met
Because
you, I
first
saw
you
it
have
at the Institute Hygiena. They had from Germany.
Okay, but we bought, of course, we also bought that,
And
but
I
not
could
from
see
the,
it.
but not from the patient's blood.
No,
That's
no.
the point. Is that in a culture which you buy from Germany, then of course you see because that is concentrated, but it's a lot concentrated.
And in that, it was very interesting because it was only Borrelia. And you could see that the way Borrelia moves completely different. Like one goes around, one jumps.
Yeah, that's the point, that and they look different in the culture because
Very different.
because they
But similar.
change. It has even been shown now, and it's evident. People have known it for more than 100 years that Borrelia changed the shape after 10 times culturing it, for example. So it has been known. They even lose some of their motility after that. After 10 times of culturing, they lose their infectivity also
Oh my God.
after certain time. So that's one point. The second point is that many scientists believe that they can see the Borrelia coming out of the red blood cells.
Oh.
Is not true. That's what they described is the formation of the artifacts of the pseudo Borrelia. Okay, that's what they have described. There are very famous scientists who have described they see the Borrelia emerging from the red blood cells, coming out of the red blood. No, that's the artifacts. And there are many publications.
Are the artifacts similar to Borrelia?
Yes, but they don't move. They don't move so much. If there is some motion in the liquid, there are currents in the liquid, then they can make it move similar to Borrelia. But the problem is that everyone is looking at Borrelia as stationary objects, in which it is almost impossible to make a difference between a a false Borrelia and a real Borrelia.
But with your method, I could see it. Even
We
me,
can
that
see
I'm not a
motion. We can
specialist.
see moving.
Yeah, because it was moving like a live person.
Yes.
And the objects, they were moving sometimes because of the situation in the microscope, but was not changing the shape. It was like moving in a way
Yeah,
still.
exactly. But that's not like that in every reagent. It's only like that in DualDur, because the DualDur will stiffen the membrane of all human forms. So it will like stop, but only humans. The bacterial, they can move.
What specific safeguards does DualDur use to protect against pseudostructures and against sample contamination?
Okay, sample contamination is very important, that we take the blood very clean. So we use a special method for disinfection.
Diet, very important, the diet.
Okay,
Without
yes,
a good diet.
the 24-hour fat-free diet will help us to discover more Borrelia. Okay, because we are not only after one Borrelia, but we are after a lot of them. We want to calculate how many there are, the density of Borrelia. Therefore, we want to see all of them. And if you want to see all of them, then you have to remove anything that is disturbing, and fat is stored in a special way in blood for up to 24 hours. That will actually stop us from seeing all the Borrelia. So in those cases, we say, sorry, we could not investigate your sample. And that's a real thing. I can show you, like, you don't see anything, just white, just white, just white stuff, okay? But it's also important to keep the Borrelia alive, which is why there is special additives in our reagent to just make the Borrelia alive and not other bacteria.
So the liquid is like a nightclub for them, yeah? Like them.
Well, yes, but not so much as they multiply. They don't multiply. They actually keep slowly dying, but they only multiply in a very rare case. So my father has been able to video one multiplication, I think.
Really?
Yes, and I have done one, but all the rest we cannot see multiplication.
What's the most important for the quality? The medium, the concentration, automation, or AI? Where is the biggest value added?
I think the liquid is what differentiates. So even if we had the full automated microscope, even if we had the best people doing the test, if we could not stop the formation of artifacts, then we could not investigate.
So the liquid is the most important. What does it really mean for a patient and a doctor that the test is IVD and CE market? What path did you have to go through to get that?
Okay, so IVD-CE means that it has been approved for as a diagnostic device, meaning that you can do any tests when you have a laboratory. You can do any test, but this one will be able to differentiate disease and no disease. That's what it means.
Okay.
IVD, in vitro diagnostic. CE means the regular mark for anything that you have approved in Europe, but here it's important to have IVD. So, and that was a long process. And if if we hadn't performed the largest clinical trial in Europe, we would probably not have been able to get the IVD.
Okay. Let's get back to the diet. DualDur website emphasizes patients' preparation, for instance, a low-fat diet. How does that affect the image, and how often it is a problem in practice? How it looks like? It's too many people that they think that the diet is not so important, and you get blood that you cannot investigate.
Sometimes we still get it, but I think that in every country that we have entered, in the beginning there were more people who did not completely follow the diet. And then maybe when they got back the results that it could not be investigated, then they went out and they shouted out, "Yeah, you know, why could you not investigate?" And that, I think that served as an example to other people that, you know, if you don't keep the diet, you really will not get a proper result. And I can tell you that we know a lot more about the sample. So we have a lot more information than what we are actually issuing. There is a reason for that, because you cannot or you should not issue data that you have not clinically validated for that specific data. And because our endpoint for the clinical trial was disease or no disease, you know, therefore we can only publish that in the result, disease or no disease. But we know a lot more, and I can tell you, the more they follow the diet, the more information we can get. So, for example, to doctors, we can provide the level of borrelia that is in the patient. So we often see that the level doesn't change. First test, the second test, third test, and then the physician or the therapist comes to us and says, "Okay, well, I can see the patient is not improving, and your test is showing no improvement either. So can you tell me, can you help me a little bit?" And then we tell them, "Okay, these are the things that we see, that you cannot kill the bacteria with one single antibiotic. You cannot kill the bacteria in most cases without antibiotics. So there is no natural remedy that we have found to be clearly helpful in healing the disease, not just lowering the symptoms."
Like DualDur, it's not only to know if you have Lyme, but it's very good as well to see if the treatment is working. Yeah,
exactly. That's the biggest advantage that we have, that we can test anytime.
And how long after the treatment a patient should make a test to check out if the method works?
It's usually 4 to 6 weeks until then all the chemicals and all the
After you finish
antibiotics.
the treatment.
Yeah. After the finishing the treatment, and when all the chemicals and everything and the antibiotics are cleared out, and what's more important, that the borrelia maybe remain and the immune system starts to take care of the remaining borrelia. So there is a balance between the borrelia and the immune system, and that's when you want to measure. You can measure during the treatment. It's like very good when you are applying a year-long treatment. Of course, you want to know. Some doctors do apply 1 year of antibiotics. So I don't support that, but that's fact. And then sometimes they send us the samples to measure in between, and we can tell them, okay, right now this is the level of borrelia. It can be lower than before, but you know, you always should check after the treatment to see the new balance between the borrelia and the immune system.
Okay. How long does the process take from collection to result, and what factors most affect turnaround time?
Okay, basically the shipment takes the longest. Because I don't know if you remember when we went to a laboratory to teach personnel. They were not convinced, and they said, "Oh, you know, it's so long and it's so tedious. I'd rather do serology." And then I said, "Okay, you start with your serology. I start measuring
Okay.
measuring the time. I start with DualDur. Let me know when you finish." So it needed a lot less time because you can only do 10 serology tests at once, maybe 20 if you do it right, maybe rather 10. And then it takes more than 4 hours. And then you have to read it and you have to evaluate it. Whereas the preparation of DualDur,
Preparation is very long.
yes, but
It's manual, everything.
yeah, but for us with DualDur, it's really the time that the centrifuge is running, that's the longest in the preparation.
Okay.
So, and then investigation is really fast again. So, and that's automated.
Andras, how should a physician integrate the DualDur result with other diagnostics and the overall clinical picture?
Okay, first of all, I don't want to sell anyone this DualDur, okay? So this is a help that they received. I'm not just interested in money. I just want to make sure that this is a big help for the doctors. If the doctor doesn't believe in it, okay, that's the first point. So it's not compulsory. We are not asking the doctors to replace anything. They will in the long term because they will learn that our tests are more in comparison with the status of the patient, so they make more sense than any other test that they have been performing, but we are not asking them to replace. So this is just it's a status of the current level of infection. Okay. It tells you if the infection, the level of infection, and also if it's a positive result, meaning the infection causes a disease, or a negative result, which means that the infection may be there, but it's not probably not causing a disease. So this is what they get from it. If they find it's in correlation with the symptoms, all the better. But if they find that it's not in correlation with the serological test that they are doing, that's not a surprise for me, because I'm teaching this at university, at conferences. I do a lot of presentations in Lyme conferences even. So I'm telling them which method gives you which kind of result. So it's no surprise for me that DualDur is not in line with the serological tests that are usually performed. No, because it's not designed to give you the same opinion. It's designed to give you a different opinion, which is there an infection or is there no infection? We are not asking if there is a response to an infection, which is what serological tests.
In which three patient profiles does DualDur deliver the most value and why?
I would say after treatment. That's so.
To check out, yeah?
Yeah, because no other test can do that. You know, PTLDS, post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome.
Yes.
I hate this term because it's not true. It's not scientific to use that. Why has this term come to an effect? Because people said, okay, here is a serology test. Here is the Lyme bullseye rash. Okay, we know that the patient has Lyme disease. Now we are treating him or her with 3 weeks of antibiotics. And then we say Lyme must be gone because we treated it. But what happens if there are symptoms after Lyme disease treatment? They say it's a different problem. It's not Lyme disease anymore. And we are bothering them because we show that there is Lyme disease. And so does, by the way, Eva Shapi or Eva Ružić. These are professors in different parts of the world. They show them in 16 weeks that there are Borrelia. You can culture the Borrelia even from these patients. That's a big problem, that they have this inability of the tests that cannot show Lyme disease. And that's why I said it's the thinking. What is the problem? Because they think Lyme disease was there. I have tested it. I've proven it. I've treated it. And now I cannot test because there is no other tests other than DualDur. So now I cannot test. So I tell to the patient, go home. You don't have Lyme disease. It's all in your head. That's where the problem starts. And this is where we can actually add the biggest value. And this is why people are hating us. This is why people are attacking us. I know they are attacking us. And this is why. Because we discredit the current opinion. Because we can show some facts. And that's when they close their eyes and say, no facts. No, please don't tell me that there is Lyme disease after treatment. Don't tell me there is life after death. I shut my eyes. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear the truth. And this is why they are attacking us. That's the number one reason why they are attacking us, because we are showing them that they should change. And most of the doctors that say something against us, they are not ready to change. That's the point. They have not read any publication in the last 20 years. They are not ready to read anything. They are not ready to open their minds or their eyes to new things. They want to keep as they learned at the university. Tell me, you learned how to drive.
Yes.
Very long time ago, I guess. You're a good driver. If you sat into an electric car, would you be able to drive it immediately?
No.
You would have to learn.
Yes.
How much more in science? How much more in medical science? If you are not able to drive an electric vehicle, you cannot move today with most of the cars. That's what is happening to these guys. And they are closing their eyes and they say, no, I have a 20-year-old car. It's enough for me. I like it. I don't like electric cars. I don't like electric scooters, I don't want to move faster. I don't want to move more convenient. That's the problem.
Hope this is gonna change. I have a question. Imagine I'm going to the forest and I get a tick. Well, I'm always protecting myself, but imagine I get a tick. When can I make the test DualDur to find out if I'm infected?
I would like to rephrase that question.
Okay.
First of all, why should you get a tick bite? Because now there is tick repellents, there are socks.
No, I just asked that.
Okay, but
hypothesis,
even those
not me,
people.
but people, they get ticks all the time in Poland.
Yeah, but even those people should listen more, because there are now socks that have been impregnated for I don't know, 60 washes, or I don't know how many washes. Many washes that will protect you from ticks. There are repellents. This is the easiest way. Why should you get a tick bite when you can avoid it? You can get a blanket which is impregnated. You can get a cap which is integrated. You put it on your kid, they will not get infected in the most dangerous place, which is closest to the brain. please avoid.
But hypothesis.
Okay, the second.
Hypothesis.
Okay, the second thing is that most of the people have already. It's not their first tick bite.
Oh yeah, of course,
Okay.
because
We know it.
yes, I heard once I saw one girl who had, in this moment, I saw her 12 ticks in her body.
Okay, but it's not the first time they are being bitten by the tick, because certainly you have not noticed before. So, and because it's not the first tick bite, there can be reactions to which have been caused by the previous tick bites. So you are sensitized to a tick bite. First of all, right now there is a person who died from red meat allergy caused by a tick bite. Okay, it can only happen that it's not the first tick bite. Even they have some rashes and reactions immediately. That means that it's not their first tick bite. So they should immediately get tested for serology as well, so that the doctor will know whether this was the first infection or there was a previous infection, because there will be a different therapy for the first bite, the first infection. And as I told you, 1 in 5 people have already encountered the Borrelia, not only ticks, the bacteria that cause Lyme disease. Okay. So it's very important to listen and to see the symptoms. And if you really want to get tested, get serology testing and DualDur, let's say 4-6 days after the tick bite.
Okay.
That's when you can already test.
How do you interpret a borderline result, and what do you recommend next?
Okay, first of all, DualDur is also different in that terms, because most of the tests, they have positive, borderline, and negative. And the doctors usually don't know how to interpret a borderline result. So we decided to split the borderline as well.
Okay.
We say there are those infections where it is very clear, highly positive. We are now even adding another category, which is the highest.
Oh.
Because of Poland,
No.
for example, because there are very high levels of infection in UK, in Hungary, we have a lot of high levels of infection. And then you have a very clear one when there are no Borrelia, absolutely, or not so many. Imagine that we are scanning altogether almost 400 fields of view of the microscope. So one field of view can contain 100 Borrelia, and they don't, of course. Even when concentrated, they don't contain so much. They usually contain 1 or 2. But the point is that we are scanning for a lot. Like we are scanning almost the whole sample, basically, for Borrelia. So it's basically impossible to not to find at least one Borrelia if there are in the sample. But there are samples where there are very, very few or not. These are the clear negatives. Then there are the clear positives. And we said the borderline, most doctors don't understand. Is it positive or is it negative? So we split the borderline category and we say there is borderline positive and there is borderline rather negative, which means that the quality of the sample, the number, that everything more correlates with the clear positive, then it's a borderline positive, or more correlates with the negative people, then it's a borderline negative sample. So we have put innovation even into that. Why? Because we are always asking, what is the patient asking for? What is the doctor asking for? I'm a biophysicist, but also a marketing person. I learned how to listen to people. Good doctors also listen to people, and we listen to patients and we listen to the doctors. What would you like to know? And this is what they would like to know. They would like to know whether
The borderline.
it's a positive or it's a
Okay.
negative. I don't want a borderline which I cannot basically comprehend.
That's very nice that you explain this borderline, because everybody has problems with that. If you had to point to one risk of misunderstanding around DualDur, what would it be, and how do you want to prevent it?
I don't want to be very rude, but stupidity is the biggest risk that people don't understand and people don't want to understand. That's the biggest risk that we have. That this is something new, something exceptional, something they have not heard before, and they don't want to understand. That's the biggest risk, that we are completely different and we are out. Basically, we are overtaking the status quo, and we are providing a completely new horizon, which is in fact called the absolute truth. This is there is a so-called absolute truth in clinical testing, and this is what we are closest to, the absolute truth, and people don't want to hear the absolute truth.
What are the next 3 development steps? Publication, new AI features, more laboratories, market expansion. To some of these questions you already explained us, but maybe which in general, what do you plan to do next?
Yeah, I think it's very important that everyone who wants to do the test can do it, because we have received requests from 35 countries already, samples from 35. In most of them, there are regular sample sendings, but we don't have a laboratory like we have in Poland, you know. So
it's complicated, the transport and
transport, and that, you know, you cannot just pop into you know, I'm starting the diet this morning and tomorrow I'm just going to get tested. It's not always possible, not in every country.
Okay.
So you're lucky, Polish are lucky, because you have a very wide distribution in regarding the test. So if you believe in it and if you want to do it, then you can do it. And I think the other thing is that we would like to make it even more reliable and even more accurate. And this precedes any other objective right now, that we want to be better. We listen to the doctors, we understand what they need, and we want to give them even more better information. And this is where AI is helping us again.
Okay.
When we started, AI was basically in the beginning of being used in medical diagnostics. We have collected millions of data points. So now we are in a position, and we have been training the new version for years, actually now, more than 3 years. So that's another point. If it doesn't give any advantage, which now I know it does, but I had to see that in advance that there is a chance. So now we know that it does give a lot of advantages. We ourselves understand a little bit more. We can probably say who is more dangerously infected and who is not. The same level of infection.
Okay.
One of them is more dangerous than the other. I just understood it a couple of months ago. that we can also differentiate that. So there is a host of information, a lot of help we can give regarding the treatment. So it's a lot, and I just cannot do everything with one head and two hands. So yeah, less focus on publications now because we have done most of it, and more focus on making it available and improving it.
Okay. Thank you, Andras. That was very, very interesting. But I'm sure many people are gonna have more questions. I tried to make many, many questions to know
Very good ones.
a lot. But let's do it this way. Let's ask anyone that would like to make you questions to put it downstairs in our YouTube, and we meet next time, maybe in Budapest.
Yes,
And you answer the questions.
yes, I'm ready to do that. Although now that you have asked people, now I'm expecting that there will be a lot of questions and a lot of controversies.
But please don't repeat, because I made many questions, new ones.
Yeah, I'm all in for that. I've never had such deep questions in an interview, which is good. And even our competitors who are actually saying some good, sometimes most of the time some bad things about us, they have not even gone this deep into the technology.
So
and
thank you very much.
understanding.
But prepare for next time for more interesting
I'm ready.
questions.
Ready even to go live and do that.
Okay, so thank you
Okay.
very much again,
Thank you.
Andras.